All right, so now we're moving into the ones that have variables in them. Remember, we're dealing with negative exponents here. So these say simplify the expression, write your answer using only positive exponents. So obviously if it's a number that's being like squared, cubed, whatever, we should be multiplying that out. But with variables, we can't do that. We just have to leave it with positive exponents. So 28x to the negative 4. So what is that negative 4 tell me I need to do?
Put it where it ain't.
So what would that be?
1 over x4.
Yep. 1 over x to the 4th. And that's where you would leave that one. There's nothing more we can do with it. 30. In parentheses, 4g, all raised to the negative 3. So remember, when it's in parentheses like that, it goes on both things. Okay? So that takes that whole piece that's in parentheses and moves it to the bottom. So this is going to become 1 over 4g cubed. Now what happens to that cube?
Distribute.
So what do I get when I do that?
4 to the first, g to the first.
1 over 4 cubed, g cubed. What is 4 cubed?
4 cubed is 64.
Yep. So 1 over 64 g cubed. (32) x squared y to the negative 3. What do I need to do with this one?
You have to flip the y.
Flip the y, yeah.
So this will be x squared, oh, not cubed, squared, over y cubed. And that's where that one stays. (34) Let's see, 6 x to the negative 2 y cubed, all raised to the negative 3. So again, there's two different ways that I can go about doing this one. I'm going to do this one different than the way I did number 30 just so that we see another option. I could do this one the same way that we did number 30 by moving it to the bottom first and making it 1 over everything in parentheses cubed. But there's another way I can do this. I can, just like we did in, I don't know, whatever section that was, 8.1 or 8.2, where we took and we are distributing that exponent to everything. I can actually do that first. And so when I do that, that's going to give me 6 to the negative 3, then x to the negative 2 times negative 3, and then y to the 3 times negative 3. So now this would give me 6 to the negative 3, x to the what? What's negative 2 times negative 3?
6.
Positive 6, and then 3 times negative 3? Negative 9. So this would be y to the negative 9. Now what do I need to do?
Now you gotta put 1 over 6 to the third.
Well, it's not 1 over, but I moved that part. Now what? What happens to the x to the 6?
Make it, maybe it's put on top.
It stays on top. It's already on top. And what about the y to the negative 9?
It's gotta go down and become y9.
Y to the 9th. Now, 6 cubed, probably not something you know off the top of your head, okay? If it was one like that like you probably wouldn't know, you can just leave it there. I don't even know what that one is off the top of my head, to be completely honest. It's 216.
Yay. Oh, right.
So x to the 6th over 216, y to the 9th. So obviously you can multiply it through. You should know what 6 squared is, and then you could sit there and multiply it again, but I wouldn't be as picky about that one.
So you just move whatever variables are negative to the bottom?
Yeah. So if I had done it the other way instead, I'll do like an alternate here. If I had moved everything to the bottom first, I would have ended up with 1 over 6x to the negative 2 y cubed all cubed. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to distribute that. So it'll be 1 over 6 cubed x to the negative 6 y to the 9. And then I'm going to end up moving the x back up to the top. So I would have ended up with x to the 6th over, well, that would have ended up being 216 y to the 9th. So you're going to get the same thing either way. I just wanted to show a different way to do that one since we had done the other one with 30 where we moved it to the bottom first. And I saw that one of these exponents was negative multiplied by a negative, so I knew if I moved it, it was going to end up moving back to the top. And I try to avoid moving things like as many times as possible because you're more likely to get something wrong if you do that. But either way, you could do it like I did in red or like I did in blue, and it's going to be the same answer. All right, let's see. 36. R to the negative 2 over S to the negative 4.
You've got to flip them and make them positive.
How?
By putting S on top and R on bottom.
Yep.
Making them positive.
So if I flip them, that'll put S to the 4th over R squared. And that's all you have to do on that one.
Yes.
38. 1 over 8x to the negative 2, y to the negative 6.
You got to like move the Y and X back onto the top.
Yep, I'm going to move those. The 8 stays on the bottom. So that's going to be x squared y to the 6th over 8. $42. Nope, not 42. 40. Jumping ahead. 1 over, in parentheses, negative 2z to the negative 2.
Like, so what if we like distribute? Because you have to distribute on the bottom.
So I probably wouldn't do that first. You can, but I probably wouldn't because I have a feeling you're going to end up mixing something up if you do that. What does the negative exponent tell me to do?
Flip it.
Flip it. So I'm going to move this up. It'll make it easier if we do this. Negative 2z squared. Now I would distribute. A negative number raised to an even power is what?
A positive.
A positive. So that's going to end up being 2 to the 4th. Not 4th, squared. Squaring it in my head and putting that as power. And then z squared. So that ends up just being 4z squared. We're not in 8.2. We're in 8.3. $42. 3x all raised to the negative 3, y to the 4th over negative x squared. Notice on here that negative's not in parentheses. That's going to make our answer different. Y to the negative 6.
Move the 3x down and the Y up.
Yep. So notice this 3x has to go together as a pair though. So I'm going to end up with, on top, y to the 4, moving that up, plus 6, over negative x squared times 3x cubed. Now what?
Now we distribute with the 3 and the X.
Yep. And what do I get on top? I'm going to go ahead and do that in one step also.
Y down.
Yep, y to the 10th over, I still have negative x squared, then what is, or well, let me do this, times 3 cubed, whoa, times x cubed. Now what?
Combine.
Multiply, well.
I think you're both trying to say the same thing.
Multiply the x's
And what do I get when I do that?
get negative 3 to the power of 327.
What?
What?
3 to the power of 3 is 27.
Oh, okay. You said to multiply the x's, so.
That's what I was like, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to do that.
Well, yes, and so I said, what is that? And then you said,
that's negative x to the 6.
nope,
X to the negative 6.
nope. What happens when we multiply? What'd you say? Yes, we add their exponent. So what does that give me?
Fifth.
X to the fifth. So this is negative x to the fifth. And then times 27. And then we like our numbers to be in front. So this would be y to the 10th over negative 27 x to the fifth. All right, one more. I know this is an odd one, but it's a multiple choice question, so we're going to do it anyways. In parentheses, negative 4 times 2 raised to the 0 times 3 raised to the negative 2.
1.
I think it's C.
Distribute.
I think it's
Or you
C.
can just make 2 1 first.
What Sam said.
Okay. The 2 to the 0 is what?
1.
1. So I can just ignore that at this point. Now, what is this negative 2 out here telling me to do?
Distribute.
Okay. So, yes. But would we agree that all of these are just numbers being multiplied in here?
Yes. Yeah.
So how about instead I multiply negative 4 times 3 first? And ultimately times 1, but that's not changing anything. So inside I have negative 12 raised to the negative 2. Now what does that negative 2 tell me to do?
To flip it.
Flip it to the bottom. So 1 over negative 12 squared. And now what is that?
1 over 144.
1 over 144. And it's positive because it was being squared. And so just in case anybody's so inclined to go back and look, that was the answer, option D.
Nobody said.
All right, any questions on that?
Nada.
All right, so adding on to the problems you had yesterday, we're adding on 29 through 43 odd. And there's plenty of time. The worksheet that I gave you the other day, you're going to do. If you were not here the other day, I'm going to give you the worksheet because you should be able to do that worksheet now in its entirety. Okay? So you also are going to do that because we've got 35 minutes left of class.